My name is Lauren Carr, and I'm the Director of Education, Engagement, and Inclusion at Ensemble Theater Cincinnati. And welcome to Meet the Artists. During the regular run of our shows on the second and third Thursday evenings after the performance, we have our Meet the Artists in our lobby bar. But since we can't do that right now because we are all doing as we should and socially distancing, we thought we'd bring it to you in your homes. So tonight I have with me our production stage manager, Brandon D. Holmes.
Hi.
Hey, Brandon, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. It's good to see you.
You too. I miss seeing everyone's faces.
I know. Well, since we do normally have these in our bar and after our renovation in 2017, we have a very large bar, we do normally possibly have a little drink. So I would like to thank you so much for joining me today. And if you would give me just like a little toast.
Yep. There we go.
If only everyone knew how much we actually did practice that, but this is a whole new realm we're all getting used to, right? So thank you so much for joining us. It's really great to have you on here with us. And for all of our viewers and all of our followers throughout social media and our sponsors and our patrons and our friends, we're able to hear like what it is that you do. So I'd like to start with kind of breaking down your title. So you are an equity production stage manager. So let's start with Actors Equity. What is that? Please explain it to the people who come to see the shows. They see the little asterisks in the playbill and they may not know what that means.
Yes. So Actors Equity Association is the union that represents stage managers and actors. So a lot of the theaters in town have stage managers that are union and actors that are union. And basically the union just protects actors and it protects stage managers. And so there's a very large rule book that we follow, that we abide by to basically protect our actors, protect our stage managers, make sure that we're not getting taken advantage of, and also that the theaters are getting what they need from the actors, and that everyone is getting a fair treatment.
Oh, cool. So you are the production stage manager. So what does a stage manager do? And I see we just had Tracy Hoyda as a fellow stage manager just join us right now. So just explain to us, what is the job of a stage manager?
So stage managers, my general job is to basically carry out the artistic integrity of the show and to make sure that everything is flowing as it needs to flow. I'm typically there from day one of rehearsal to closing performance. And so my job is basically to just make sure that what is envisioned by the director is being carried out, what is envisioned by the designers is being carried out, and that the actors are getting any information that they need. And if there's something specifically that they want, that is provided to them as well. But then as the show goes on, as the run goes on, the director typically leaves the show. Well, I am there to watch the show and make sure that it is staying the exact same. It's allowed to grow but not change too much. But basically just my job is to make sure that it stays the same and that we are delivering the same performance every night.
So what is the difference then between a stage manager and a production stage manager?
So production stage manager is typically in charge of everyone else. We at ETC have a smaller team. There's myself, and there is Lexi Muller, who is our assistant stage manager. She is also an equity stage manager. And then sometimes we'll have a stage manager intern, not often, or we'll have one of the acting interns step into a stage management position. So my job is really just to coordinate. It's pretty much the same thing as I do as a normal stage manager. I'm just coordinating schedules and talking to all the directors that are coming in, all the actors that are coming in. And I sometimes deal with budget for our department. There's not a lot that I have to worry about, luckily, because our production team is just so awesome and I don't have to worry about getting much. But as a production stage manager, I am very much in communication with all departments, including administrative departments.
Cool. So where did you grow up? Like, where are you from? What's your story, Brandon?
My story? So I grew up in Kansas City, and I was born in Wichita, grew up in Kansas City, and once I was ready to go to college, I went to Wichita State University, and I went straight into theater. Didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do in theater, but something in theater, I knew that. So then Pretty quickly, I fell into stage management because I've always been the organized type. I've always been the scheduler type. I hate when things run late. I've always been like that. Um, but then I think my sophomore year of college, I stage managed my first show, and that was Greater Tuna, which, if anyone knows the show, has a ton of costumes. So that was my sophomore year, and then pretty quickly after that, I just kept going. I worked for a very large summer stock company in Wichita called Music Theater Wichita, and I was there for 4 summers in between all my college years. And I was fortunate enough to meet a couple of people that have been through the Playhouse or that are still at the Playhouse and Playhouse in the Park. And they told me about the internship at the Playhouse in the Park for stage management. And so then I made my way to Cincinnati for an internship. And I've been here ever since, which is great.
That's amazing. Since you are a stage manager, I don't think that you will mind this too much. Would you mind just scooting back a little bit from the camera? We're getting a little bit of feedback, and we're kind of troubleshooting that right now on our back end right now to see if that might be what is causing a little bit of echo. So for anyone who's watching, again, if you were questioning if this was live, it really is. Hey, Kaylee, how you doing? So, all right, so you did a internship at Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park. For stage management. So then you were there. So you were in Cincinnati. So then how did you get to ETC?
So the end of my first season at Playhouse in the Park, Lynn Myers directed the show in the Shelter House. And I was originally not supposed to actually be on that show. I was on a different show. And an intern had left, and then another had left. And so I ended up falling into that track. And so I met Lynn. And she was, we were in the room for 3 weeks together, 3 or 4 weeks together, and really got to know each other. And then I had one more year at the internship. And then pretty much, I would say I ended my internship in May. And then in September, I got a call from Lynn saying, hey, we need a stage manager to fill in. Do you want to come and do a show? We'll give you your card. So that got me to ETC. And I was fortunate enough that they kept me on for the next season.
So what was your first show with Ensemble Theater Cincinnati?
My first show was Alice in Wonderland in 2012.
Ooh, that's been a minute. Some of our viewers may have seen we actually remounted that show, not this past winter, but the winter before. So how was it doing that show again?
Well, it is definitely my favorite of the holiday shows. Alice in Wonderland has just always been one of my favorite fairy tales. And getting to do it again, I love the wackiness of it. I love the goofiness and the psychedelic feeling of it all. I think it's a great show. It's super fun. And then just the differences in between both productions. It was just so much fun just to see it remounted and revamped.
Awesome. So, all right. So you're from Wichita, went to college, did your internship at Playhouse, got to ETC. So over the 2012, I mean, it's 2020 now. So favorite show at ETC, favorite show that you've been able to stage manage and call?
So, yes, there are actually a few that I really have enjoyed. It's really hard to choose which is my favorite. One of them was probably Georgia McBride, Legend of Georgia McBride by Matthew Lopez. I adored that show, not only because of the cast, but because of what it entailed. The quick changes, the dance numbers and montage scenes. It was just so much fun to call and just fun to watch. Bruce Cromer is a gem, and I adore him so much. I love Michael Carr. I just loved everyone in that cast. It was just a great show. I would then have to say Hands on a Hard Body. It was a really hard show. It was a very hard show. With the music tracks, it was a big show, one of our biggest casts that we've had, or at least I've had at ETC. But with the music and the truck was a monster in its own way, but I adored it. I love that show. I would do that show again in a heartbeat. And then I would probably have to say Fun Home. Fun Home it tugged at my heart so much. It really hit home, and it's such a wonderful story. And I think the way that it translated from the graphic novel to the stage is absolutely gorgeous. The music is stunning. those are my top three, and then in a very close fourth is Hedwig.
Ah, yeah, that's a lot. I was gonna say that's a lot of Cincinnati favorite right there.
A lot of it's a Cincinnati favorite. It's a great show. I love Todd. I love Beth, and that band was awesome. And it was fun because I got to be in the booth with Matt Holsteggy, and he and I were just jamming out the entire show. So it was great.
That's amazing. Just so you know, in case you don't see this on here, your parents are actually watching right now. So if you want to say
my mom, my dad.
there you go. So we actually do have a question. So I'm going to kind of jump around here. I'm going to take some questions. Those of you who are just joining us, my name is Lauren Carr, and I'm the Director of Education, Engagement, and Inclusion at Ensemble Theater. And joined with me tonight is our production stage manager, Brandon C. Holmes. If you have any questions for Brandon, please go ahead and type those into the comments, and we will address them right here. So we've got a question from Katie. Katie asks, what's your favorite part of the job, and what is annoying / makes for a bad day?
Oh, my favorite part of the job. My favorite part of the process and job in general is tech rehearsal. And tech is when we start adding all the lights and sound and costume pieces and all the props and everything into the mix, just to see this play coming from the page to the stage. And that's so cheesy, I know, but I love it because that's when all the magic is added into it. And then I get to have Fantasia moments where I'm conducting everything. And that's my favorite part of the process. What is annoying and makes for a bad day? There are just days when things just don't go right. And I feel like I'm my harshest critic, and there are days that you come into rehearsal and you're just having a bad day and nothing's happening correctly. Nothing is staying on schedule. There are people that are running late. That just makes for a bad day. And you do your best to be as positive and as open as you can, but there are just times that you're just like, I'm just angry, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, what there of like having to stay, positive in the face of that. I will say what I say to my students almost in all of my classes is that your bad day is no one else's problem.
Right.
Like we want it to be, but unfortunately it's just not. And so at times, like, when you are the person running the whole show, you kind of gotta stick with it, right? And kind of stay positive no matter what.
Absolutely. I had a director that asked me last year how I stay so positive. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we were playing make-believe. We're adults and we're playing make-believe.
Yeah, we get to play for a living.
Play for a living and make magic.
Pretty cool. So there is a question from Carolyn that asks, what is the hardest part about your job?
Oh, the hardest part about my job would probably have to be making schedules. There are a lot of pieces that come into play, and there are a lot of, because ETC uses so many local actors, which I absolutely love, but that does bring a problem of creating a schedule. Just making sure that we are getting to people when we need them, and that the theater isn't getting cheated out of their hours. Or that the actors are also not getting cheated out of hours, so that we are able to rehearse the show and that everyone feels like they have had the amount of rehearsal to do a great performance. And trying to figure out that puzzle piece is always a challenge. There are times that I'm really grumbly about it, but I really do love it because it is a puzzle and I love figuring those kind of things out. So the scheduling for me is my hardest part, but I also do love it.
Well, so one of the questions that I had for you was, how do you stay focused and entertained, not necessarily entertained, but how do you stay involved when calling and running the same show 8 times a week for 4 weeks?
Yes.
How do you keep it fresh? And
I can tell you that every show is different. There are some shows, musicals typically have a lot more cues for me to call. There's typically a lot more moving parts and pieces to it versus a straight play. So something like Fun Home has a ton of cues, 250, 300 cues, something like that. But if I'm doing A Doll's House Part 2, there's only cues every 15, 20 minutes. So typically it's harder for me. The hardest shows for me are the ones that I don't have a lot of cues because you have to stay engaged. And so typically for me, is I end up doing some kind of puzzle with it while I'm watching the show because I go back and forth a lot, and it just keeps it keeps me moving, my brain moving, the cogs turning. Um, yeah, it's kind of my little secret, but I don't want the actors to think I'm not paying attention to them because I am paying attention to them always. It just is my way to stay focused in the show. And I have a lot of other friends that do that too, actually. So we're not ignoring you. We are watching the show, and we still see things when they go wrong. So I am always paying attention. I just need something because it's hard to get it to watch something 8 times a week. And especially if it's a show that tugs at your heart, it's hard to not get invested in that. So you have to find something to keep your brain, keep it occupied.
Yeah. Well, for those of us who get to work with you, we know that you are watching and paying attention at all times, especially, when those rogue patrons are texting or checking a game score on their phone during the show. They wonder why, how is it that house management knows that that's going on? It's like, no. Brandon's eyes are on you the whole time.
In the curtain speech, and I actually can see when people are texting. I can see when they're on Facebook or Twitter or checking the game scores. I know.
That's amazing. So I'm going to jump to one of our audience questions. For those of you who are joining us, this is Meet the Artist. My name is Lauren Carr, and I'm with our production stage manager, Brandon T. Holmes. So there's a question from Jennifer Rodway, which I think actually might be her daughter, Kaylee. What is your pre-show ritual?
My pre-show ritual. Oh, good question. So I typically get to the theater about an hour and a half, 2 hours to an hour and a half before the show. And I always have a little checklist, or not little, I always have a checklist of things to go through. I check certain lights and sound things. I always sit in the house then, and I chat with Matt, our production manager, for a while. And he and I always have something to talk about, whether it's regarding this show, regarding the next show, or just life in general. He and I always have a chat about something. And then I usually head backstage about half hour, and then I always eat dinner. I always eat dinner before a show. I don't know why. I guess I focus better when I eat dinner before a show. I don't know. It's kind of odd. And then about 5, when I call 5 backstage, I'm heading to the booth. And that is when my light and my soundboard operator coming up with me as well. And then we always just check in with house management, make sure things are working really well. And then when it's time to go, it's time to go. So it's really a simple thing, but it's a really simple ritual. But really for me, it's just eating dinner. But opening night, I always close my eyes and I take a deep breath. And I always take a quick little prayer that make sure that things go well. And, we've all worked hard for this. And I was, I just want things to go correct. And I want them to be perfect and right, and especially for opening night. Those are the nights that I'm always nervous. First preview, not really. Opening night, yes.
So you put no pressure on yourself by any means.
No, like I said, I'm my harshest critic.
Yeah. So, okay. So Ensemble Theater Cincinnati season typically, we're definitely in abnormal times right now, typically runs, the shows open the end of August or the beginning of September and run through the end of June. So what do you do in those other months, Brandon T. Holmes? Where are you?
So in the summertime, starting at the end of June, I go to a company in Lexington, Kentucky called the Lexington Theater Company. And this coming summer, it's its 6th summer. And it is a small, well, not super small, it's definitely grown over the last few years, but it's a Somerset company where we do a show from first rehearsal to closing night. It's a 2.5-week process. So it's a week and a half of rehearsals. We've got about 13 hours over 3 days of tech, and then we have a preview and a couple more hours of fix things, and then we run the show for five performances. So 2.5-week process, and they're not small shows; they're big shows. Like my first show I did there was Legally Blonde. Last summer I did Newsies and West Side Story. They're not small shows; they're big shows. So they're very quick, fast-paced processes, and we have time to do things once, and then we move on.
That's awesome. So I'm going to jump to a question from one of our own, past apprentice Ben Jacobs.
Hi, Ben.
What is the funniest moment you've had in the booth? And could we actually have a picture of what the booth looks like? Is that possible? Do we have one of those up there? So while you're thinking about what is the funniest moment that you've had in the booth? I feel like I feel like he has an idea.
Something, and I'm not sure what it is. um, I can tell you that I've had a lot of moments, and there's not one particular moment I'm thinking of, but I've had a lot of moments where I have just forgot how to call a show. Um, so if you don't know what calling a show is, basically I have a light cue with a number calling and a sound cue, and I'll say stand by, and I'll stand by the light and soundboard ops, and then I'll tell them when to take the cue, and I always find that right moment. Well, there are times when I just forgot the word go, or there are times when I'm just like, oh, it's words just aren't coming out because I'm just not. And then after the moment, I'm like, what just happened? I've had so many moments like that, and I have no idea why. But that's the one. Those are the one things that always pop in my head. I'm like, oh, why did I do that? How did that happen? Oh, Ben, I'm not really sure what you're talking about, though. I can't wait to hear what you're thinking of.
Well, so it's interesting to think about. There are so many things that you were saying that even as someone that knows you, like I didn't necessarily know you did. Like I've been with you on many nights before the show, did not know that you ate dinner right before. Like very interesting for me. Like I'm now thinking back to like, those moments right before you're kind of scurrying around. So have there been any times in working at ETC that you have not been in the booth?
There have, actually. The last season, The Wolves, I actually took a vacation for the first time in I don't know how many years. My fiance and his family and we went to Alaska. And so my assistant stage manager, Lexi, called the show, which was really kind of a nice break for me because I got to sit in the house on opening night and see a show at Ensemble Theater where I work normally. I've never done that. So yeah, there was that production. And then there was Sex and Education earlier this year. So Lexi called that show as well. So those are the two over the last 8 years that I've been there now. There have only been 2 shows that I haven't called.
Wow. That's a lot. So you've done a lot.
Yeah.
So this is one of my favorite pictures that we have of you. This is actually taken on a break during the Wolves. So this is during a rehearsal where you are backstage. Can you kind of talk about why we had to have this on the ground backstage?
Yes. So the set of that. So if you don't know ETC space, backstage, the building used to be a bank. And so our backstage is called the Vault, and it echoes so much. There's so much echo there. And depending on the set also, and that set was a big slanted wall that slanted upstage, it really has a tendency to just produce sound and it makes it louder everywhere. So we had 10 people in that show. So I was back there doing tech and trying to make sure people were quiet and just, reiterate, we need to be quiet, we need to be quiet. And I finally had to do that. I finally had to tape out no talking. And yeah, that was on a break. Laying on the ground or laying on the deck and just taking a break because that was one of our long 10 out of 12, 10-hour days.
So we have a great question from Annie. Annie Fitzpatrick wants to know, what is the most complicated show you've ever called? So since we're talking about the Wolves not being so expansive, I think that this question is pretty apropos.
Oh, most complicated show. Well, I can tell you the most complicated show I've ever called was not actually at ETC. It was actually at the Lexington Theater Company. It was Legally Blonde, and I adore Legally Blonde, but it was so complicated because we perform in the Lexington Opera House, which is a very big space, but our big entrances or set pieces are downstage, which is not typical for most theaters. They're usually upstage. So all big set pieces come in upstage. But because of that issue, we had a lot of shifts that we were just reorganizing backstage, and I had a huge transition backstage as well. Or I also had a lot of cue lights that would cue scenery, and that was just difficult for me personally because it was the first time I ever had to do that to that degree. There are also so many people. I think that cast had well over 40 people, and so many flying pieces, and the set was huge. So there were just so many big moving pieces and parts, and people everywhere, and dogs, and it was just a really challenging puzzle. And again, I love puzzles, schedule puzzles. I love set puzzles. I just love all sorts of puzzles, and just figuring all of that out, and just to make the way to make it run. That show was really rewarding, and it was just really complicated. I came out of that show thinking, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do this.
You're pretty great at your job. I mean, there's comments in the feed right now that you're one of the favorite stage managers that people have worked with. Like I know that you're very, very dear to me. So yeah, see right there. See?
I love you, Ray. Thank you
so much love. So since there's no theater running right now, what are you up to? What are you doing?
What I'm doing right now is I am playing, homemaker. I'm doing projects around my house that I've been wanting to do since we moved in. It's been 3 years that we've been in the house, but I'm like, okay, great. Now is a great time to build a workbench in my garage. Now's a great time to paint the cabinets. Like, I have the time to do it. I'm also working on my shows for the summer in Lexington, assuming we're able to perform those. I'm just going through those, doing an initial analysis of it, and making sure that, just making sure I know the shows, luckily, and hopefully we're able to perform them this summer. So, yeah.
I think that's where we all are, right? I know there was a comment earlier about, there not being much theater that happens during the summer. But that's not necessarily true. We're very fortunate at Ensemble for our shows to run through the end of June. And then we have our apprentice show. And then we have our summer camp show. And then we open the season all up again. So, it's pretty nonstop. So thank you for everyone who has joined us tonight on Meet the Artist with Ensemble Theater. This is Brandon T. Holmes, our production manager. We have one last question, a fairly important question, though, I believe. This one is from a Chuck Holmes. Not sure if you're familiar with this person, but who provided you with the most inspiration, mom or dad?
Inspiration? Oh, goodness. Well, I can tell you that I can't answer that question, but because they were both huge influences in my life. They have continued to support me throughout my life, and growing up through high school, picking me up from late night rehearsals and late night performances, from just cheering me on from the sidelines. They love coming out to see our shows every year. They try and come see the holiday shows as much as they can. They're always the loudest ones in the audience laughing because I love them so much. They come to Lexington to see my shows, so it's hard to choose, and I can't choose because they're awesome. My parents are great, and I love them so much.
Well, I'm pretty sure they might let that go. You're probably going to get a text or two, maybe. Thank you, Brandon, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's so wonderful to see your face. I know that those of us who get to work with you, miss you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who has watched us tonight and joined in. Please be on the lookout. Next Thursday night, we have another guest for our Meet the Artist. I'm very excited to welcome Erin Carr, who is a movement and intimacy coordinator and a theater practitioner. She's got a lot to talk about. Intimacy coordinators are a new position in theater, so we're excited to kind of break that down and get that out to all of you at home. So thank you so much for joining us. See you next week. Bye.